Move that. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Internet world, West Alabama, right here, downtown Northport. You're watching the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We're going to have a fun show today. We started off the week with a little Mississippi State breakdown, breaking down the 40-17 win. Yay, Alabama continues in the SEC West. We're going to have a fun day at BamaCentral.com. You can always follow the coverage at BamaCentral on the X Machine and at BamaCentral SI on Instagram. We'll be over at the Naylorstone Media Room as this guy is rolling. 1 o'clock, we'll be hearing from Darian Dalcourt, Terry and Arnold, and other players. We'll also, 4:30, be covering a little soccer press conference at 4:30. So we're going to have a fun day doing all kinds of sports. We're 34 days away from Alabama basketball tipping off, but we're not talking about basketball today. We're talking about a big week in the SEC, a big week for Alabama, big week in the SEC West. And to do that, we're bringing in my friend, my mentor, everything I know about radio and talking on the air from Ryan Fowler. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at Ryan C. Fowler. Listen to him each and every day right here on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa from 2 until 6. He hosts the game, and he hosts really the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide football fan all day, every day, talking Alabama football. Ryan, thank you so much for giving me some of your time today. I hope you're doing well, and let's have some fun talking Alabama football.
Hey, absolutely. It's good to be on with you, Joe, and I appreciate the kind words. As we enter the month of October, close down, college football time, it just flies by. You know what I mean? I mean, you blink and you're 5 weeks into the season, you blink again and you're 9 weeks into the season. We count down from 248 and we get down to college football, and then we blink, and here we are going into the month of October.
Absolutely. I was telling a friend today, I was like, oh, we're feeling like I'm getting into rhythm. But then when you look at the calendar, oh, we're already 6 weeks in. So I'm glad I'm finally in rhythm 6 weeks in with 6 weeks left to go. We'll find out what this Alabama football team is going to be. Obviously 4-1 so far, 2-0 in the SEC. So that's great. And that's dandy. You've been covering Alabama football as long as I've known you, and for a long, long time here in Tuscaloosa. So you have a great eye for this football team. Just walk our listeners through maybe your assessment through 5 weeks, maybe what you thought going into the year, and how you assess this football team through 5 weeks.
Yeah, I know we spoke about it a couple of minutes ago, but you look at this offensive line, we've almost got to go back and apologize to the people who listen to your show, to my show, to follow us, because I don't know anybody that was not saying that this offensive line was going to be at least somewhat of a strength on this team. They've not been able to turn into that. For some reason, this unit did not, and I don't know if it's the offense that they're trying to run. They are much better on run blocking than they are pass protection. But how did we miss this offensive line? I guess, counting out the most important position, Caden Proctor at that left tackle spot, he has not been as automatic as some of the other, true freshman tackles that they've started, right? I mean, you go back and you start going through, whether it's Jonah Williams or you want to go back through Cam Robinson, you go back to early, Cyrus Quanjo started as a freshman. So you start going through in your mind and you think, okay, it's just plug and play, right? Let's go get a left tackle. But really the deeper problem for me is the development side of that offensive line. That's a little bit of a concern because, if you remember, they had to go bail themselves out with Tyler Steen last year, right? Because coming out of spring practice, they knew that left tackle was going to be a weakness. They didn't have a left tackle, so they went and got one for Vanderbilt. So let the optics speak for itself. Vanderbilt saved you at left tackle 1 year. I guess my question is, in this transfer portal era that we live in, unless there were some promises made or you thought that you could get him there, why didn't you go get one this year? Because, there's probably a ton of left tackles out there that you could say, hey, we're Alabama, let's go get one. That left tackle really is weak. And I've never been a big believer in Darian Dalcourt either. I'd like to be somewhat nice, and I'll attempt to be, but I don't think he gives you a ton of power. I just it's I see him going back more than I see him going forward. I see him kind of getting pushed up, and so when I look at this offensive line, I know the snaps have been an issue. You got to start there. Wide receiver, I think they've got a lot of number 2 guys. Um, I don't see a number 1 out there. I mean, somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see a guy where it's 3rd and 7. This is my guy. This is the guy that I'm going to get it to run a 7-yard precise route right beyond the chains and pick up the first down. I just don't see that guy. I think there's some potential that these guys could be those type players down the road. I guess on the defensive side of the football, I've been maybe a little bit more positive because, we look at the NFL and we think about the number of players last year that team lost, and that they're having pretty productive years. On Sunday afternoon, you look at what Brian Branch is doing up in Detroit. Even like DeMarco Hellams. I look back and I go, man, that guy made an NFL roster. So either we were under coaching him or playing him out of position or whatever that may be. When you look at that defensive side of the football, Kevin Steele's done a solid job getting this unit. I kind of feel that when you look ahead at the team, that he will only wherever this defense is able to take Alabama, that's where they're going to go. Quarterback, I thought at times we would get a little bit more production out of that position. I knew that when Saban said what he did at Nashville, where there was no separation, but at that point, you don't want there to be a separation. You want that competition. But as you got deeper into fall camp and you started hearing the buzz, well, there was really no separation. You also have to ask the question, did Saban make a mistake in that early transfer window of getting a quarterback? And I think that's a fair question, because I think you kind of use that Alabama ego to go, hey, we'll go get anybody we need. And there was not many transfer quarterbacks in that late window. So you look back, and if that's at the end of the year, if that's the struggle that Alabama ends up not making, the SEC championship game or not be in the college football playoffs, and this is the first time, I guess, in the Nick Saban tenure, other than going back from 2007, 2008, 2009, this will be a 3-year gap of no national title. So, and at this point, I don't see a national title for this team. Not trying to be, a Debbie Downer, but this team's got a lot of work to do before we even talk about national titles. And I think probably the start would just be getting through Texas A&M.
Absolutely. And in Texas A&M, you're going out there. The last time you were out there, you lost to a backup quarterback, even with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. So we know it's going to be a tough task going out to Kyle Field, the 12th man, and Jimbo Fisher is going to feel very confident in his ability, being the first assistant coach to beat Nick Saban. But with everything that you outlined, and I do largely agree with what you've said, I love what you've seen from the defensive side of the football, but the offense has been work in progress at best. We're going to talk to Darian Dalcourt today in the Naylor Stone media room, and I don't think we've talked to him since Nick Saban used the line after the Texas game. The offensive line has been too soft setting, and so I want to ask him about that. I want to ask him about his pad level and kind of how you work on becoming more of a tough setting offensive line, if it's a personnel issue or if it's a schematic issue. We'll get into that here in just a little bit with Darian Dalcourt. We'll find out about that today. But everything that you outlined, Alabama 2-0 in the SEC West. The SEC West, you saw what happened over there in Oxford last weekend. LSU losing a game, giving up 55 points to Ole Miss after Alabama held Ole Miss to just 10 points. Obviously, you don't want to take too much away from beating Mississippi State. I think they're a very talentless football team, and Zach Arnett seems like he's in way over his head, in my opinion. But everything outlined, you've got everything right in front of you. You beat Texas A&M. You're number 1 in the SEC West. And then from there, it's basically handle your business at home with LSU, Tennessee, and Arkansas. And you got a road trip to Auburn. even with everything you outlined, Brian Fowler, all the goals for Alabama still right out there in front of them.
No, you do, and at some point you think, okay, if that light switch is switched on and that offense begins to kind of sync together, who knows? Maybe they've been saving it all for Texas A&M, and behind the scenes that this offense is just a precise offense, and they're able to stretch the field and deep balls, and maybe this offensive line is better in pass protection and practice than they are. As you were saying, building that physicality, mentality edge for just a minute, let's go back to fall camp. I think when you look at these tough practices, think about two-a-days when you were working with a team. Think about when you look at contact practice on back-to-back days. Now, can you build a physical football team without two-a-days, without back-to-back practices of contact? I mean, if you go one day of practice with full pads, you can't go the second. Then when you get in the season, all that kind of changes. I don't know if you can build one of those type of teams. I think that takes a lot of, iron sharpens iron. And when you're going out and you're not able to do some of the things, I guess maybe if you want to take about tackling, that this team is a better tackling team. Well, Kevin Steele's done a much better job because you don't get those practices of full contact. And I know they're able to thud and they're able to go through the fundamentals of it. But when you look at the physicality, I almost wonder in my mind how much of that impacts if you're not able to do those fundamental practices.
Oh, 100%. And I've loved what I've seen from the defensive side of the ball, but you're 100% correct. Coach Saban complimented or was happy in fall camp about working in the heat, but then even said we went indoors some days because it was too hot. And just think about 2008, 9. I mean, and that's not that long ago, but even the toughness and the rules in the early 2000s was vastly different from what it is now. And of course, you want to protect the players, and they are the commodity. But you've got to, at some point, I mean, even at a high school level, my coach used to say, callus you up. He used to callus you up. We got to get through the first 2 weeks and
Sure.
build some calluses on your bodies and get used to practice. And so I like what you've seen from the defense. But how do you think, really, in hindsight, looking at the last 2-3 months, was the defense just beating up the offense and not getting? The offense didn't have any really build any confidence or any
Could be.
toughness in that part.
But really, the offense should have been somewhat of a strength. Losing all the guys that you lost last year, to me, that defense should have been further behind the offensive side of the ball. And
Oh, yeah.
so, and this is the part I don't want to judge Tommy Rees in because it's limited when you have a quarterback that can't do everything that you want him to do. But I think great offensive coordinators are able to maximize the strengths of your players, disguise the weaknesses. No offensive line that is, just an all-star caliber unit. They're getting better. I thought their best performance was against Mississippi State. I know Nick Saban said that in a post-game press conference Saturday at midnight in Stark Vegas. But when you look at this offensive line, it's hard. I mean, think about what Tommy Rees is coming up with, right? He says, okay, what we talked about wide receiver, we talked, tight end, maybe their best receiving unit. No offensive line or no, that's not a strength. Quarterback still growing. Is it fair to judge Tommy Rees? It may be more fair to go back and question the development of those positions. We already talked about development of offensive line. Maybe we should talk about, rather than, going to Tommy Rees, maybe we should look back and go, all right, Hoddeman Wiggins, you've been here for quite a while. Where's the wide receiver production? I mean, Joe Gaither, you and I could coach Devontae Smith. So and I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way, but what I'm saying is he was made a long time before he was special talent. It's where do you go here? And the transfer portal bailed them out a couple of years with Jamison Williams. So Hodman Wiggins, let's see some wide receiver production here. Let's see some. So before we can judge Tommy Rees, and I like, the criticism's fair. I don't see a lot of creativity, but he's also limited with what he can dial up. Pretty difficult.
100%, and I think you and I are on the same track mind with the assistant coaches. We've maintained nice recruiting classes, number one, number two, number three recruiting classes over the last handful of years. But it seems like they haven't taken steps from those high school 5 stars, those high school 4 stars into quality, reliable, consistent players that Alabama can really develop. And now the defensive side, I mean, I got to give Freddie Roach a little credit. He's been under
Sure.
fire over the last handful of years. But this year's defensive line looks very imposing. Jamarian Latham, Justin Aboigbe, and Jaheim Oatis really in particular. But maybe that's more of a product of Chris Braswell and Dallas Turner's just havoc coming off the edges. I think as a whole, the staff has been much more, we're top-notch recruiters. I don't know if you have enough top-notch developers of talent just on the whole.
Well, I like what you said, top-notch recruiters, and I think that's where, a couple of years ago, the dam was breaking at recruiting, and I almost think that Nick Saban may have over-adjusted. He knew that he had to go out, go through the coaching staff, okay? Sal Sunseri, Coleman Hutzler, who would you take?
As far as an on-field coach,
Well,
Sal.
yeah,
for sure.
it's not even close, okay? You go through and you're going, these veteran coaches, and you're thinking, okay, Charles Kelly, a guy that is the defense coordinator at Colorado. You just look and you're going, okay, he could be a part of this staff. I just look at development, and I know Nick Saban went to a younger. We were in Starkville, and let me kind of set this up for the audience who may or may not know. Bryant Denny, the coaches' booths are across the field now. They used to be in the same press box several years ago before Alabama did the renovations. Now we're in the corner. We don't see the coaches walk by. In Starkville, it's right the opposite. You do see them walk to the coaches' box. Joe, this is a young group of coaches. Like when you see them walk by, when you see them, you almost think to yourself, okay, here's Kevin Steele. Once you get beyond Kevin Steele, like Joe Cox, that's a young up-and-coming coach. Tommy Rees, young up-and-coming, hopefully, coach. You just see the staff members walk by.
They're all in my age range, Ryan, and I'm not
they are,
old, but I'm not young either.
They are super, super young. And
Yeah.
I saw them walk by, and I'm going, man, Kevin Steele and Nick Saban skew the average for this group of coaches because there's a lot of youth there. And so when those guys walk by, I just took a mental note of going, man, oh man. But think about the analyst side of things. Now they do have Charlie Strong, who's a veteran. But think about having a Joe Pendry as a consultant. Think about having a Burton Burns as a consultant. A Bobby Williams as a consultant. I mean, you go through some veteran coaches. Sal Sunseri was an analyst for a couple of years. You don't have those guys now. I mean, I look at that staff and I'm going, wow. I mean, they are – I would be willing to say that this is probably the youngest. If you added all the ages up and you just did an average of Alabama's coaching staff, which would be just an easy, mathematical thing, I bet this is the youngest coaching staff Nick Saban's ever had.
That's a good idea. Giving me a nice idea for something to work on in the future. I like that. Outside of Ken Wisenhunt, and Charlie Strong, you basically got just all kinds of guys. And no disrespect to the early 30s, but goodness gracious,
you do have
some of that experience. You need some of that long time. Been through the wars, been there, done that, and been able to coach a lot of different styles of players. This, that, and the other. I think you make a great point.
Now you do have Derek Dooley. I forgot about him. Yeah. That's another. I mean, somewhat of a veteran. He's coached at a lot of different places, even though it's not been successful. But you've got some coaches there. But just the overall of the 10 assistant coaches, they're fairly young.
Let me ask your thoughts on something else that Coach Saban said after the game, late night in Starkville. And our friend Nick Kelly asked him right off the bat, "You got a little fiery on the sidelines. Can you tell us about what went into that?" And he said, "Oh, well, Miss Terry said if the guys weren't playing well, for me to get on their butts, and so I was just doing what I was told." For the first time in maybe 2 years, Coach Saban really letting it loose on the sidelines. I have felt just from an outside observer, like, oh man, does Coach still have the fire? Does Coach still have the want to take it to level 12 and to get into somebody's rear end? And obviously, he did on Saturday night. A lot of fun to see that again. Will we see that going forward? And just as you're a longtime cover, you've been covering Nick Saban since he was here in 2007. Did you think you would ever see that again? And what does that mean to you as an observer, as a cover, as an analyst, someone who covers this football team?
Well, somebody brought up a really good point yesterday, and I think it was Martin Houston who made this comment. I think it came from a caller to his show, so I got to give him credit here. But this is a real thing that we must discuss. Okay, I think the grandkids have changed Nick Saban. Okay, and I love kids. Well, I mean, I sometimes love kids if they're not yelling or screaming or whatever. But I think about the grandkids were in bed. Did that impact that? Okay, now think about this. Okay,
True.
I mean, Miss Terry did not make the game on Sunday. Excuse me, on Saturday. It was Sunday. It was when we left Sunday morning. But I think about, maybe that was part of it. Maybe the grandkids were not able to see it, or maybe Miss Terry just gave him permission and said chew their butt when they're not doing right. So maybe that's part of it. But it does something that I think about when he said what he did. And so when you look at this Alabama team, I would like to see more of those butt chewings and the things that Nick Saban is known for in the early part of the dynasty here. I mean, he would rip the veteran coaches that you and I ran through a couple of minutes ago. So I think he's grooming. He knows where he wants to go. He's trying to get this group to buy into everything, and I think you may see more of that. To be honest, the sign of him, the way that he was coaching hard, because when a team is soft, you'll see Nick Saban pull off of them a little bit, right? When he knows that the team is either fragile physically or mentally, it's kind of like after a loss. You think Nick Saban's in there peeling the paint. Really, it's the other way. He's lifting them up, right? He knows when to lift them up. He knows when to tear them down. So by him tearing into them on Saturday tells me that maybe this team is starting to flip a switch. Maybe because if he thought this team was fragile, he probably wouldn't be lighting them up the way that he did. And let me tell you, those weren't just players that he was lighting up. Those were some of those assistant coaches that we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago.
He got into it with Malik Benson. He got into it with Terrion Arnold and with Seth McLaughlin in several instances on the sidelines. It made me think, okay, maybe he's getting I was always wondering, all right, are you just riding this thing out or are you going to keep pushing the team and pushing the program to continue to play at an excellent standard? He's been talking all year about internal standards and internal motivations and acknowledging that these players and this team needs external motivations. Well, Coach, go ahead and provide that external motivation, whether it's with the carrot or the stick. And so I really appreciate him getting the stick back out and getting into these players over the weekend. Hopefully they'll respond positively as they head out to College Station this weekend.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I think Nick Saban knows that at some point he's got to, regardless if they're ready or not, he's got to tear into them. And I think Nick Saban's at his best. I mean, it's the moments of, A.J. McCarron getting spanked on the sidelines for throwing a touchdown pass when he checked out of a rushing play I like to see that part of the Nick Saban back. So hopefully we're able to get that back, and hopefully Alabama, can take that next big step. And listen, as much as you said it a couple of minutes ago, if this team is able to win this week, and everything is still in front of them. I mean, they went out. We're not sitting here talking about, well, Alabama came up a little bit short. No, we're talking about an Alabama team who made it to Atlanta. And if they win then, they're probably in the college football playoffs. Now, I do say this. If Alabama is able to do this, this would be their Nick Saban's best coaching job. I really do. I feel that way. And I've said that before, but I think this year, if he's able to get this team to competing for a championship, regardless if it's an SEC championship or something else, it would be a gigantic achievement for this football team.
Well, we're talking to Ryan Fowler. You can hear him every afternoon right there on Tide 100.9 from 2 until 6, host of the game, and he'd love to take your phone calls talking to all things Alabama football and a little SEC football as well. Ryan, we've talked a lot of things that this program or this team has not done so well through the first 5 weeks, even though, you made it through 4-1. What about maybe an aspect that's underrated, an aspect that's not getting enough attention for positivity? I've got a couple of nice players that I think deserve a little more attention, but what about Ryan Fowler? Who are some players, whether they're young guys or not guys that get positive headlines, who have caught your attention as underrated contributors to this football team?
Well, that's something to think about for a couple of minutes. I mean, I can name a few of the other ones. Let me take Caleb Downs, and I know Caleb's got a lot of publicity, but I think when you look at what he's been able to play back there, I know this week he was Deshaun Alexander Freshman of the Week award list, and as a true freshman, he was co-freshman of the week in the SEC. But he gives you a lot of options back there. I think when you think about the way that he stepped in, go back to when Minkah Fitzpatrick started in. Let's see, that was 2015, and helped me with a wide receiver at Clemson, the guy that always tore Alabama up.
Justin Ross, I believe, or Hunter Renfrow.
Hunter Renfrow, yes. Go back to that game when Deshaun Watson was throwing at Hunter Renfrow and Minkah Fitzpatrick kind of got tore up. That was Minkah as a true freshman. Think about Caleb Downs. He's really taken a lot of steps in the right direction as a player. But I think I'm starting to see some leadership back there. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that really jumps out to me is he's kind of, watching Kool-Aid and Malachi Moore, and he's taken a more aggressive leadership role. So that's hard to do as a freshman. I think you start there. You could also look at the wide receivers. I guess I don't see anybody there. Tight end, certainly Amari Niblack has grabbed some attention, but somebody that doesn't get enough credit.
Let me throw 3 at you, and 2 of them are kind of obvious. Okay. I'll throw. I think Jace McClellan is been underrated as far as he's not a real Alabama running back. He's not a 3-down back. You can't lean on him. But every time he touches the football, I think he's picking his way through the offensive line, and I think he's become a real reliable player. He's improved in pass protection from the first week. The running backs were so bad in pass protection at the very beginning of the year. They've gotten a little better in that aspect. And then the 2 easy ones. Ooh,
sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. My dog heard your dog. That's all good. Everybody loves dogs on the podcast.
So hold on a minute. So your dog actually heard my dog, and so then they go. I'm actually letting them out, so that's good. They can go and celebrate the outside here for a couple of minutes. So,
Abby just jumped up real big when she heard that bark.
Well, normally it's my wife. Getting an Amazon package is what normally is happening. Today it's a water delivery truck, so that's where they went crazy and they were putting some bottles of water out. So anyway, I apologize for that.
But, it's all good. We love dogs on the show. If you watched this yesterday, you could see Abby a little bit on the show. But I think the 2 specialists, obviously Will Riker gets all the love. But James Burnip has just really set up the Alabama defense in a strong way. And I know we've been critical of Jalen Milroe to a degree and maybe his skill sets and the offense, but not turning the football over against Mississippi State and only having it's a painful turnover against Ole Miss in the end zone. But if you are not turning the ball over and you're allowing James Burnip to boom the ball down the field, give the defense 60, 70, 80 yards of cushion behind you, I think that's really going to be a huge asset going forward in SEC play. I know that A&M is going to have a nice little offense, but if you make them go down the field every time, 70 yards, I don't know. I like the chances of Caleb Downs, Kool-Aid, and Terrion, and Malachi Moore really slowing things down from the passing side. I think Jason McClellan and James Burnip are two real unsung heroes, keeping even while the offense hasn't been that great, but winning the field position battle, and giving this defense a real fighting chance each and every game.
No, I like the James Burnip, and I'm sitting there on Saturday in the press box. I looked to my left, and I looked at Gary. I said, "Man, he can flip the field." I mean, he is. Think about where Alabama would be currently without James Burnip or Will Reichard.
Oh. Not good. James wasn't that strong when he first got here from Australia. His improvement has been, year after year, big time improvement.
And so when you look at James Burnip, I mean, he's really taken a big step. And when he stopped it inside the one, and that he almost got another one down inside the one and barely touched the. It was a pretty good play for the coverage team, getting that ball back into play, but the official marked him, in the end zone. But you look at James Burnip, and I do like your Jace McClellan thought. Maybe.
He's not explosive like like you'd want out of an Alabama running back, but just reliable.
Yeah, he is. No, he is. And as much as we heard about, think about the spring camp or spring football is we heard all about Jamarian Miller, right? I mean, it was Jam Miller. Everywhere you could go, it was Jam Miller. And so, he kind of said, "Hey, whoa, this is my football team until I give it up." So, a credit to him for grinding and staying in that spot. But I also think, I'd like to see some more of Justice Haynes after those 1-2 runs there in the fourth quarter. And I know it's Mississippi State, but man, he hits the hole fast. So I'd like to see a little bit. And I like Roydell Williams too. That's another guy that at times, you got to go back to South Florida. Heck, they might have lost that game if it hadn't been for Roydell. When you look at hitting the hole and getting in the middle, so you got to start there. I like the running backs have been pretty solid group, and they've been solid on picking up that pressure too because of this offensive line is so porous.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, Ryan, we're going to get you out of here in just one moment. I appreciate your time. We've been talking to Ryan Fowler of the game right there on Tide 100.9, right there in Tuscaloosa. You can hear him from 2 until 6 or download the Tide 109 app to listen to him wherever you go. Let's get you out of here with just thoughts on this weekend. You're playing at Texas A&M. It's going to be the first time you go back there since Jimbo beat you with a backup quarterback. You and I were standing on the sidelines last year when A&M was throwing into the end zone at Evan Stewart, and Terry Arnold made a play to basically seal that game in Jalen Milroe's first start. Obviously, Milroe turned the ball over 3 times against A&M last year. Not good. What's your outlook on this weekend's game? If you win it, you're in control of the West. Obviously, it's not going to be easy. You're a 2.5 point favorite. Depends on wherever you look. A&M's going to be hungry. They beat Auburn, the hapless Auburn. They beat Arkansas, who I don't think is that good either. A&M kind of a mystery. What's your thoughts on this weekend's game?
Joe, I'm very I have anxiety over this game. This is one of those. Okay, I don't pick a lot against Alabama. I don't. I'm considered a homer. I think Alabama this is going to be an absolute fight. Somehow, some way, if they're able to come out of College Station with a win, it's going to be that this team played their best football game. I think it's going to take It's going to take Jalen Milroe playing his best performance. I know that you can point and you could go, okay, they lost to Miami. They lost to that team on the road. And I think the other part of this that we haven't discussed is when you look at Nick Saban, this is his first return trip since he made those comments about Texas A&M. Fair, right? I mean, this is his first return trip. So you don't think that fan base is going to be hostile? I mean, they absolutely are. So when you think about this team, they're almost and for everything that's happened negative around fast talking Jimbo and that staff. If this team is able to come out, this is why those Texas A&M boosters invested that $30 million is to keep up with Alabama, to be able to go out and sign that recruiting class. This is a group that it's going to be a challenge. I mean, do I like Alabama somehow? I don't bet against Nick Saban, but I think this is one of those that, based on the things that I have seen so far, I don't know if the team, they're going to have to play better. They're going to have to play their best game to come out of College Station with a win. I know it's early in the week, so I'm going to save my prediction a little bit later.
Sure.
But I'm almost leaning Texas A&M, and I know that doesn't. It hurts for me when I say that, but it just I just feel so far. Is it fair when I look at this team? I think about a team that is still growing. Now, listen, if they survive this, you come back and you're going, okay, now you get Arkansas here, you get time to kind of relax just a little bit. Not that you could ever relax with this team, but you get Tennessee here. That looks like a winnable game, especially at home. Then you get a bye week. Then you got LSU. So you're starting to kind of go, okay, this might work out. So it's all about. I mean, I know it's early, but you lose this, you can get ready for basketball season at 34 days. But if you win it, then you can come back, as you said earlier. You've still got a lot of your goals in front of you, and that you can have a chance to accomplish those goals. If not, I guess you start building for 2024, and you ride out and you beat some of your rivals, and maybe you're kind of the destroyer of some seasons rather than trying to create this. But very important season, and it comes down, I guess, to this Saturday. But I look at Alabama and I think, can they win it? Yes. But based on past performances, they're going to have to play their best game. And so for that, I'm a little bit concerned about this game.
Kevin Steele, Tavares Robinson, Nick Saban, they're going to be having to brainstorm their, burn the midnight oil and come up with a great game plan to let the offense kind of continue to work their way through the season and work their way through this game. It's going to be a blast this weekend at 2:30 on Saturday, Alabama and A&M. You guys can listen to Ryan Fowler each and every afternoon right there on Tide 100.9. He brings you the game. It's all day, every day Alabama football. No other hooey or nonsense. It's Crimson Tide all day on the game with Ryan Fowler, 2 until 6. Follow him on the Twitter machine at Ryan C. Fowler. He's always got the great inside scoop from practice. So if you guys want to know anything about the Crimson Tide that you're not reading online right here at BamaCentral.com, not that we don't cover it as well, we do as best we can. You can listen to Ryan Fowler on the game on Tide 100.9. Ryan, have a great day and have a great show, man.
Hey, thanks for the invitation. Enjoyed it, and it was kind of a therapy session a little bit. So I'll pay the copay as I exit the room here, and I appreciate the opportunity. You guys have a great day. Thank you again.
Absolutely. That's Ryan Fowler joining us right there on the Joe Gaither Show, and I really appreciate his time this afternoon. You guys can turn him on in about half an hour. You can see him right there on the game at from 2 until 6 on Tide 100.9, and each and every weekday on Tide 100.9. If you don't have the app, or if you're not in the area, you can download the free app. It was my former employer. I still love those guys a whole lot. Love what I'm doing at BamaCentral.com. Absolutely proud of that, but always have a great affinity for the relationships that I made at Tide 100.9. As I said earlier, everything that I've learned thus far comes from Ryan, comes from a lot of the other hosts over at 100.9. So appreciate his time. Make sure you follow him at Ryan C. Fowler for more information and more great coverage of the Alabama Crimson Tide. All right, so we're going to wrap this day up. We're going to, as this is going to be playing, we're going to be talking to Darian Dalcourt. We're going to be talking to Terrion Arnold. And there's one more player that I'm leaving out. Who is it, Josh Maxson? It is Jace McClellan. There we go. Jace McClellan. So we'll hear from all three of those guys. We'll be talking to them as this program is rolling online. And then so we're going to be doing a little bit of coverage on BamaCentral.com, letting you know what Jace McClellan, Darian Dalcourt, and Terrion Arnold have to say. Then at 4:30, I'm heading over to Alabama Soccer Complex. Oh, they took one on the chin. They lost to Kentucky on the road, 2-1. Not good on Friday night. We'll hear from Wes Hart and players that are made available to us. See if the ladies can bounce back. You'll be able to pay attention to that at 4:30. So we're going to have a lot of fun the rest of the day on BamaCentral.com. Wednesday, we're going to be trying to get a Texas A&M writer on. I've reached out to several different A&M writers and reporters. Hopefully we'll be able to nail one of them down, as they are looking to take a huge win over the Alabama Crimson Tide. So we're going to have a fun rest of the week. Friday's my birthday. Hopefully we're going to have a fun day on Friday. I'm getting a haircut on Thursday, a much-needed haircut on Thursday. And it's going to be a blast the rest of the week. We're talking to Caleb Rode and softball girls on Wednesday. They're having their first press conference on Wednesday. So it's going to be a lot of fun the rest of the week on BamaCentral.com. Of course, you can follow us at Joe Gaither 6 on any or all the social medias, whatever your favorite social media site is. The handle is the same, at Joe Gaither 6. Send me your comments, your questions, queries, and complaints. Of course, subscribe to the other Bama Central Broadcasting Network podcast. Our friends Blue Collar Unplugged, Blake Byler, Matthew Gibson, and Jacob Pickle. As we said, 34 days away. 34 days away from the Tide tipping off. Nate Oates and them boys going to make for another great run in the SEC this coming up season. So looking forward to a great rest of the week. Again, it's A&M week. We're going to get ready for the Aggies. I'm about to dive into some film. Texas A&M, obviously, beating Auburn, beating Arkansas, losing on the road to Miami, beating ULM, and beating New Mexico as well. So I'm going to be watching all 5 of those games the rest of the week, so I can give you a more accurate and more objective opinion of what A&M is doing. Obviously, they have lost Connor Wegman for the rest of the year, so we're going to be playing Max Johnson. It's going to be Bobby Petrino, Jimbo Fisher. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to have SEC Silly Sound ready for you tomorrow on the show. So if you're looking forward to SEC Silly Sound, drop a comment. I can't wait to bring it to you. We will definitely have Nick Saban's comments on Miss Terry in the SEC Silly Sound somewhere. I wish I could put the Zach Arnett glare that I saw in the postgame, but you just can't really. It's an audio medium. And you can't really pick up the Zach Arnett glare. God, he looked like he was burning holes into their sports information director after one little error. I don't know, Zach Arnett, unimpressed with you. Will y'all win a single game in the SEC this year? I don't know if they're playing Vanderbilt or not, but ugly times over there in Starkville. And we're on to bigger and better things. We're heading to College Station this weekend. Katie Wyndham, Blake Byler, and Austin Hannon will be out in College Station. Boots on the ground. Cannot wait to have all their coverage of Alabama and Texas A&M. So that'll do it for the show today. Big thanks to Ryan Fowler joining me. Massive thanks. He's been covering Alabama football for as long as I can remember, and so you can't get any better expert on the Crimson Tide than Ryan Fowler. So we thank him for his time. Follow his program, The Game, 2 until 6 on the weekdays on Tide 100.9. Shoot him a follow at Ryan C. Fowler. Shoot me a follow if you want. Tell a friend about the program at Joe Gaither 6. We're doing it each and every weekday right here on Bama